Today we're getting under the hood with Dani Reardon, a daughter, sister, friend, and a former professional athlete. She was number 2 in the world in the women's physique division and retired from the industry at 27 to explore another side of herself. She followed her curiosity and dove deep into the world of spirituality, plant medicine, and self-discovery. Now she finds herself helping others as a sound practitioner, yoga teacher, and ceremony facilitator. At the core of everything, you could say she is a space holder and a conscious creator. She gratefully gets to study with her teachers in Arizona and Peru and has the pleasure of bringing people to these places every year so they can study with various plant medicines and experience the beautiful way of living and practicing that truly changed the course of her life. Dani is passionately involved in the Hachuma Foundation, a project with her friends and teachers where she gets to help build awareness around the sacred cactus as well as take part in preservation efforts through educational content, retreats, podcasts, prayers, and the cactus sanctuary in the Sacred Valley of Peru. When you think of her as a friend before anything else, as connection and building relationships is her favorite thing about being alive. Welcome, Dani.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be getting under the hood with you. It's season 4, Women's March for Mental Wellness, and you've had a very interesting journey, and I look forward to sharing that with our audience. If it's okay, can we get going?
Yeah, let's get in there.
We all have inflection points in life, and I'm really curious, based on even your introduction, what was the inflection point that got you really into mental health and wellness?
Mm, Thank you. This is such a good question. And after our original conversation, kind of about under the sisterhood and what it's about, I really sat with this topic, and this was sort of a whole thought experiment for me, because at first I thought, oh, maybe it was when I retired from bodybuilding at 27 and lost my identity. Maybe it was when I got arrested for being drunk at a millionaire party and went, oh, and then that whole thing. So was it the arrest? Was it quitting bodybuilding? Was it moving to Colorado because I was on the brink of a divorce? And so I was really thinking about these, and I think it happened even before all of this, actually, and even in more of a positive light. So these were sort of the negative kind of turning points that were really hard, really dark and shadowy. But I think when I was, 19 or 20, I started to compete in the adult ranks for bodybuilding. And what I understood somehow at kind of a young age was that the mental fitness, the mental strength and wellness is just as, if not more important than the physical body strength and wellness. And so I really started to dive into what it meant to have a strong, healthy mindset. And later, the spiritual connection kind of came along with that. But really, at first, it was so I could be really great at my sport. And I started to hang out with people like Oprah, like Tony Robbins, like Jack Cornfield, Jim Rohn, these sort of real leaders in the way of manifesting and vibration and connecting to the universe to get whatever it is that you want. And so those were like my first teachers and sort of the first jumping off point of me starting to discover what it meant to be mentally well and fit so that I could be really good at my sport. And to be honest with you, I really think that this was my secret weapon that got me to be number 2 in the world, because I'm 5 feet tall on stage, 115 pounds. So like competing in a pro women's bodybuilding division, like the stats don't really add up. But I had the energy, I had the belief, and I had the perseverance and the willpower. So I think that I had the universe behind me because of all the work that I did on my mind and my spirit to help me get to that point. And then there were other inflection points. So it was like that was such a nice foundation for me to have, because it gave me the tools and the pathway and the where I could look when I was sort of in trouble. And then, I mentioned getting arrested. That was a really dark time for me with drinking. I had some really unresolved trauma under the surface, and it was the core of it was I was really betraying my soul. I was doing things because I wanted love. I wanted acceptance. I wanted validation. But at the core of it, my soul was like, no, you actually don't really want to do these things. So of course you add alcohol into the mix and cue the big blow up and a couple nights in jail. And then another inflection point going, okay, what am I really burying here? What's going on under the surface? And quitting bodybuilding was after that couple years. And that was a dark time also because even though it was the right thing for me to do at the right time, I didn't realize how much my identity was like so wrapped up in that. And I think going through an identity crisis or existential shift or whatever you want to call it is really challenging because we lose who we were, who we thought we were. I think that's the big thing is like, I thought I was this number two in the world bodybuilder, and I am, but that wasn't all of who I am. And it took me losing that identity and stripping everything away and becoming so lost and depressed and anxious and all the things that go with that, really confused in order for me to build myself up again into who I am today, which is like now I have this understanding that I'm so much more than any identity or role I could ever place upon myself. And then the last inflection point, and we can go into any of these if you'd like, but where I find myself today really working on my mental and spiritual wellness is for devotion and in service. And so where I find myself now, we talked about it in the introduction, I hold space, I create experiences for people, I do retreats, I do ceremonies, I serve yoga, I serve sound. And so all of these things are a way for me to hold space and to be helpful. Now my mental fitness and wellness is more like how helpful do I want to be? Because the more clear I can be, the cleaner space I can hold, the more I can be helpful to those around me. And that might be in a yoga class, in a sound ceremony, in a plant medicine ceremony. It could even be at the gas station or the grocery store, you know? So for me, it's like it started off really positive. Then you go through the dark night of the soul, the hero's journey, and all of these different trials and tribulations. And now to end here, and I mean, this is just where I am now. I'm sure I know that there's going to be many more inflection points and things that are going to push me deeper and deeper into myself and into mental wellness. So that's just kind of a little bit of an overview of how I am here today. Many inflection
I
points.
was going to say lots of inflection points. And I just want to say thank you for sharing both the ups and the downs. And I think what's really interesting, if you look at your journey back when you were 19 and 20, figuring out that the mindset was going to be what got you to the top was really that was the shift that was going to be your competitive advantage. It was all focused on self and getting to that. And it's really interesting as I look at just the multiple inflection points you just suggested is where you are today is from self to others and really supporting others. And I think being of service. So I think that's very interesting. I wanted to call attention to that, but I also want to unpack. I want to go back because there's a lot there. Those were inflection points, but what happened to get to those moments? And so what took you, I'm really curious, what took you on that journey to become a bodybuilder? And that is a form of wellness and what have you. But what got you into the mindset, the desire to compete in that capacity?
Good question. I love this story because, now when we look back at our stories, we can see how all the pieces were just so perfectly aligned, even though in the moment it didn't seem like they were. My high school every year put on an annual bodybuilding show for like all the students and athletes. And I think back, it's so crazy. Like, what high school even does that? But it was so perfect that I was going to that high school, and that is where I got introduced. And so during those 4 years of high school, the first 2 years I won showmanship, which is like best performance, basically best energy, And I was a cheerleader, so I could tumble, I could flip, I could do the jumps, like so I did all of that mixed in with the posing. And then the next 2 years, my junior, senior year, I won overall, Miss Wesley Chapel, bodybuilder. Like, so that was kind of the beginning of it. And I was, 16. And, at the time I said I was cheerleading. So really cheerleading was my everything. I was on a couple different teams, my school team, an all-star team, an adult team, and the captain of my school team. And so I was really, really cheerleading. And in my mind, what I wanted was to go to college for cheerleading. I tried out for the cheerleading team, made the team. The coach said, if you get into the college, you're in. Well, I did not get into the college. I missed my ACT test, the standardized testing, by 1 point. And I think the universe had other plans for me, but at the time I was so upset and ended up going to the community college nearby. I still moved with my friends. We were all living in the same house. I just wasn't going to the same college as them. So talk about like another humbling moment, right? It's like, oh God. But when I was at the community college, I ended up taking a personal training class, anatomy and physiology, and nutrition, and all of these other classes. Because I was like, you know what, I do like this stuff too. I don't really know what I want to go to college for, but the electives I chose were very that in the fitness world. And I started to think, oh, I really like anatomy. I love physiology. I love nutrition and what it does to the body. It was a whole science and was very clear to me. And I started to work out. And when I was 19, I competed in my very first show. Yeah, so that was kind of the jumping off point of that. And like I look back and that, I really didn't look that great on stage. I was 19. I still had lots of baby fat. I was eating Reese's peanut butter cups because in my mind they had protein somehow, and that was okay. I was just cheating. I was just justifying my ways to cheat on my diet. And this little story about being humbled, it's so funny. Like my journey, it's just like humble moment after humble moment. I competed. It was in the teen division. There was only two of us on stage, me and this other girl, and they awarded me first place. Well, then we go backstage and they say, Dani, I'm so sorry, but you actually got second. So can you please come back on stage and actually give her the trophy and we'll give you the second place. So I had to march my little butt back on stage, hand her the first place trophy, accept my second place trophy, and I went backstage and I cried because it's that high of like, oh my God, I won. I didn't think I was going to because she really did look awesome. So I was like not expecting that. And then so that was a bit of a roller coaster, but something about it, I think it was the devotion it took, the weeks of training my body and eating really good and training my mind and really devoting myself to this for a number of weeks because it's not like you can just go hard for a week and then fall off again and then do it. It has to be like all in devotion. So something about that really caught my attention. And then I just kept going. Next show I did, I looked even better and I actually won first place. And then the next show and yeah, and then it was just kind of, that was the path from there.
It's so interesting how we go on these life journeys. And you speak about being humbled and you
Mhm.
speak about the universe putting us where we need to be, kind of. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that because, in some ways, I understand, being two in the world at that. And then, what does that humbling experience, that loss of identity look like? And so I'd love for you to share that journey with our audience because I think it's something that will resonate with women. It's something that they could see a parallel within their lives.
I guess I'll start with the moment that I decided to actually quit bodybuilding. I was 27 and I had done my first mushroom journey. And so this was like the jumping off point to my work with plant medicine and seeing how, wow, like how beneficial this is for me. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, it was a big moment. And I was competing. I had a birthday party. My friends came over with some mushrooms and we all took them and kind of did our own thing. It was really interesting. And at one point, I found myself in the bathroom looking at my own eyes in the mirror, looking like deep into my pupil. And it was like a fun house almost. Like it was layers and layers of mirrors going back and back and back, almost like I was looking into the timeline of my soul or something. Really, I'll never forget the feeling of that. And I remember looking at myself and going, what do you want? What do you want to do? Not what your coaches want you to do, not what all your fans want you to do, not what Instagram, not what your sponsors want. What do you want to do? And at the time, I wanted to stop eating meat. I was going through this big shift, and with bodybuilding, it's very carnivorous. You're eating meat 7 times a day. And I started to kind of think, oh, I don't actually want to hurt animals anymore. And I'm eating so much of them. And it was just so that little piece started to break away. And I was like, I actually don't want to eat meat. And then I had this vision during this mushroom ceremony of me in front of a big mountain. And my next thought was, I have to get up in the morning and do cardio. Like, how am I going to get to this Mount Fiji or whatever I saw in my vision if I have to get up in the morning and do cardio again and for years? And I just thought, in a way, I'm not that I'm wasting my youth in a gym, but it felt in that way like, okay, I think this has run its course for me. And for the first time ever in 10 years, I thought about doing something else other than fasted cardio, other than being on stage. And so that was the moment where I kind of had the vision and the empowerment and the idea to start to cut this out of my life. So first I cut out the sponsors because honestly, I hated being sponsored. I hated it. I didn't like people telling me what to do when, hey, I'm going to give you $2,000 a month to post about this protein powder, even though you don't take it. I want you to come and stand. So the money was helpful. It was really nice. People wanted to meet me to be on their team, but I did not like being sort of controlled in that way. So that was my first thing. I said, quit the sponsors probably like 2 days after that mushroom ceremony. And then a couple months later, bodybuilding kind of started to look very different to me. And I ordered my suit and I went vegan by this point. And so I changed my suit color from red to green. And I was always in red. That was kind of my like signature color that I loved. But I changed it to green because I was now vegan. And I said, I'm going to compete for the vegans and show everybody that this can be done. And I had a green suit and I named her Gaia. And I remembered I tried to compete, but it just wasn't, the fire wasn't there anymore. There's this sort of killer instinct that was just like, at all costs, do whatever you need to do. And I remember the moment sending my suit back because I told my suit sponsor, I need a break. I don't know what's going on, but I can't get ready for the show. And I'd like to send the suit back in case somebody else wants to use it. And I'll just let you know when I'm ready. And I remember the moment sending the suit back in the post office, and it was kind of like time stood still as I was putting the suit into the priority shipping box. I like knew that was going to be the last suit I would ever touch, but I couldn't admit it. And so that started the sort of identity crisis. For almost a year, I couldn't say I'm not competing anymore, even though I knew it somewhere inside. I couldn't admit it. And my nickname on Instagram was Little Monster, because I was little, but I was like super jacked, and I like the universe of the stars. And I tried to change my name to other things because I didn't know what to go by anymore. If I'm not Little Monster on stage, well, then who am I? And people who knew me by Little Monster didn't even know me by Dani. They didn't even know my name. They didn't know I had a master's in exercise physiology. They didn't know that I was like a kind soul. All they knew was that I looked a certain way, got second in the world, and did whatever. During this time where I quit bodybuilding, I went to selling health insurance. And I was telemarketing, actually, with these headphones. This was the only good thing that came out of selling health insurance, other than a big slice of humble pie, because I went from living my dream, number two in the world, on the biggest stage that bodybuilding has to offer. And within a couple months, I was sitting in front of my computer cold calling to people's houses to see if they wanted health insurance. And I was getting yelled at on the phone, and I was really living a nightmare. Um, but there was a part of me that knew I needed to go through that. And at the time, my husband also quit his job because we were promised a lot of money selling health insurance. And we had a big wedding to pay off and some competition expenses that were still in debt. And so we both were doing this health insurance thing. And we were broke, we were fighting, we were not doing well, and we were not ourselves. We were not okay. And so it was time to do something else. I was like, we were on the brink of a divorce. And so I said, okay, this is our Hail Mary. Let's move to Colorado. My sister was there. Because in my mind, I needed to get away from Orlando, Florida. I needed to get away from my friends, away from the gym, away from my surroundings that kept me a little monster. And I needed to go somewhere else. And what felt really good to me was nature. I want to be with the mountains. I want to be with big trees. I want to be with my sister. Just in case things with me and my husband don't work out, at least I have those things and I can build myself up from there. So we moved to Colorado, and it's really cool and also humbling. My little sister was the manager of a fitness studio called F45. Great workout, amazing place. She said, Dani, if you come to Colorado, I can get you a job. And because I had the master's in exercise physiology, I could pretty much do anything personal training wise. And so I started working for her as a group fitness
Mm.
instructor, making $30 an hour or whatever I was doing, working for my little sister after I was number two in the world. It was just such an interesting turn of events and a bit humbling, but also quite freeing because nobody in that gym knew that I was Little Monster. I had dreadlocks, I didn't have as much muscle anymore, so I looked like a totally different person. So I could just really be me without any of that baggage or any of those accolades, any of that, anything. Shortly after that, I found yoga and then kind of started to come into this identity, if you will, or this person I am today.
I think the details of that, the nuances of that, don't go unnoticed by me. And I think we as women can go and have these moments where we are like so at the top of something, and then something happens, and we look at identity crises and stuff. But interestingly, in a number of my conversations, one thing that has really come through, and I think you'll appreciate this, is that you do what you do, but that's not who you are. So it's like, I'm not my job. So your job was to be number two in the world. You were a bodybuilder, to be the best you could be in the world at that. That was your job, but that wasn't who Dani was. And so I think that what's interesting about this phase of your life is really the ability to explore who Dani is. And now to your point of really going into deep devotion. And I think sometimes we don't recognize. I myself had an inflection point that had me falling off there, jumping off the mountain for multiple reasons. And rediscovering, or actually maybe not even rediscovering, discovering for the first time who you are because you've been so busy in these sort of boxes and going along doing the things you do. So I think in a way, this journey is just, as you said, it's very freeing, but it's also just a magical thing because there are highs and lows in life. Nobody's devoid of them. And so it's really how you show up. And I think the one thing I really want to, well, there's many things, but I really want to applaud you and really celebrate the fact that you are so incredibly resilient. You're so intelligent and resilient. You know who you are. And I think that it's just interesting how we have to go through these different phases, doing these different things. And I'm being very specific using the word things because, it could be, selling health insurance. It could be, doing whatever it is. But it's almost like that challenge, if you will, to see how you show up. And so I think, based on our previous conversation, you like to show up. So I'd love to talk about you got into yoga. I'd love to sort of talk about that phase and how it sort of moved along in your journey to devotion.
Okay, amazing. Oh, I love talking about this yoga story. So, okay, I'm in Colorado now, and I'm working at F45, this group fitness studio. And because I worked there, was employee, I got a free month membership. My sister had it. Free month membership to Core Power Yoga, which just so happened to be right across the street from where I was staying. I could literally walk there. And I didn't really know what else to do with my time and with my energy and the sadness that I felt. And so I just started going to this yoga studio. And I had done a little bit of gym yoga before, but didn't get it, thought it was kind of silly. I went to Core Power and their classes are heated, so it was hot, and they're hard, so it was athletic. And the music, I love music, so the music was pretty good. And the teachers were a little bit spiritual and talking about vibration and manifestation. So, first class I went to, I go, oh, this is hot, this is hard, this is spiritual, this is musical. I'm I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm going to come back tomorrow. So I ended up coming back the next day and then the next day and then the next. And I started to kind of get it. And I could see why people come to yoga in times of maybe healing. Like they come to yoga when they're in need of something or yoga finds them. It's interesting. In a way, I feel like yoga found me. It saved me from myself.
I think it's interesting as well the way you described because you were a competitive athlete with bodybuilding, it might not have ever appealed to you because you wouldn't have taken it seriously. I myself, same thing, was an athlete at two sports, but now I'm into yoga as a big part of my practice, just from a healing and health perspective. So I think it's interesting how we again have to go on that journey to finding that.
Yes, definitely. The yoga, it had me listening. I was like, okay, I'm in. And I liked that it was a practice because what I missed from bodybuilding was the practice of bodybuilding. It really wasn't even about the stage. Yeah, that was like the culmination point, what we were working for, but it was a practice showing up every day to the gym, cooking the food, going to bed early, taking your supplements. I mean, this is a total practice and a way of living. And now I could see the parallel with yoga. And if I kept practicing, my body kept opening up more, my mind kept opening up. It was quieting. It was like I could see this sort of pathway in front of me. And what I liked about it is that there is no best yogi in the world. So there was nobody for me to compete with anymore. It was a practice for myself. And so I kept going for a month. And at the end of the month, I go up to the front desk and speak to the manager. And I have tears in my eyes and I say, this is my last class for my month. And I'm really sorry, but I can't afford a membership. And I just come for drop-in classes when I can afford it. And she said, well, we do have this program where if you clean the studio once a week, then you can have a free membership. And right away, I jumped at the opportunity because I was like, whatever will help me keep practicing, I will be here. Turned out to be my most favorite time in my whole week. I was working at F45, working at another personal training studio, and then I would come at night to clean the studio, sometimes at 12, 1 a.m. After everybody was done, I would be finished with my jobs and then head out the door and clean the studio. And it was such a beautiful time for me to be in that space that gave me what felt like me back. It gave me my practice and my devotion in just sort of this way that I didn't quite understand, but I knew I liked it. And I'd be in there listening to my teachers, my headphones as I was cleaning, Ram Dass and the spirit Alan Watts and all these spiritual Deepak Chopra, all those people. Mostly Ram Dass, though. That's my main man. And I was scrubbing toilets at a yoga studio and cleaning showers and locker rooms. And I was just thinking of, again, humbling moments, right? And wishing that people who was looking at me as the second in the world, one of the best bodybuilders in the world, I wish they could see me scrubbing toilets right now. And I wish that they could see and feel how happy I actually am to be doing this. And it was this way. There was maybe it was like my first moment, and I'm just kind of thinking about this. I never said it in this way, but my first moment of service, giving back, and I haven't really thought about it like that before. But I think that's why it felt so good. And they call it karma yoga, so you're giving what you're getting, and yeah, it felt like a way for me to truly give back, not just to the studio, but to the practice of yoga itself, to the full lineage of yoga, everything that yoga stands for and can stand for, and the whole umbrella that is yoga. It felt like a way for me to sort of put in my energy and my prayers and my thanks, really. And after cleaning the studio for about a year, I continued practicing. And then I went into yoga teacher training and wrote in, and I got a little scholarship, a little bit of money off, which was so great, and ended up teaching at the same studio that I started cleaning for. I remember the day, it was January 1st, 2020. And I continued to clean even after I started working there because I just liked it.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of became a ritual for you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A healing ritual. Getting your hands dirty, literally and figuratively, if you know what I mean. Because sometimes we can be so up here, but when you get down and you're on the ground, if you will, there's ways to sort of, yeah, I get that as a healing thing. Personally, I get it. So I think it's great to sort of connect with that type of work. So you're doing the teaching, it's 2020. What happens next?
So 3 months later, COVID happens and everything shuts down. At first, it was like, no touching, no this, no that, no breathing. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, no more yoga studios. We're shutting down. Everybody's in lockdown. And so I continued to teach online. At the time, I started a course, leading an online course, my little business called Conscious Champion. And it was a way for me to help the bodybuilding industry out and to help them develop a strong, healthy mindset and deal with the things that come with being a competitor, comparing yourself to others, all of the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, the real mental things that go on, the body dysmorphia. So I was helping people with all of these things. And also physically, like gut health and spiritual health and energy work, chakra work. So that was what Conscious Champion was about, was mind, body, spirit, really as it pertains to bodybuilding, but it could go for any athlete. And in that course, I kept teaching yoga once a week because I thought to myself, if I'm so new, I'm 3 months into teaching yoga. If I stop now and I let this COVID thing stop me, I will probably just not teach anymore. I'll probably just revert back into being a student, which is fine. But there was something in me that said, don't get comfortable with this. Keep yourself uncomfortable, keep teaching, keep going through the motions. And I'm so glad I did that because months later, we ended up moving up where I live now to Cape Cod. And after lockdown was over, I think it was like maybe 21. I don't remember the exact time, but I started teaching at a local yoga studio and really grew into myself as a teacher. And I'm so glad I didn't stop because multiple times a week I would have 25, 30 people coming like this. You couldn't fit another person in the room. And it was just so, I was so grateful that I didn't give up when I could have given up very easily. Because it, again, then the service continued. And then me wanting to be clear continued and like kept helping me show up in my best light because I was like, teaching yoga, I'm holding space. This is a privilege. This is an honor. These people are coming to me, and this is like a huge honor, really. And so I wanted to show up to be the best channel, the best energy, the best mirror that I could be for them.
So tell us about Danny, the on the journey in terms of the medicine journey and the holding of space and sound and all the work you're doing.
I was working with mushrooms for years. I'd been developing a relationship with them because that was kind of that inflection point I talked about earlier. And I thought, oh, there's something deeper here. This isn't just tripping and having a fun night. There's actually like real medicine and real work and looking at myself. And so I continued to work with mushrooms for years. And in 2021, for my birthday present to myself, I signed up for a coaching program called Fit for Service. And they take you through 5 months or so of different Zoom calls with coaches and this and that. And then the end of it was a summit in Arizona, in Sedona. And it was camping and then a whole sort of 3-day retreat where we're doing other work, just like more spiritual work. But during that, I ended up going on my very first medicine hike and got introduced to my teacher. And that, looking back now, that really, really changed the course of my whole life. And that was 4 years ago. But I look back and I go, oh my God, that was the day. That was the day it all happened where I learned about prayer and about the altars and about Peru. And I just, met him and I was like, I just need, you're not getting rid of me. I had this feeling like, okay, I found my person and I'm very coach oriented. From cheerleading, I was really close to my coach. With weightlifting, we were super tight. Bodybuilding, me and my coaches were like tight, tight. So when I find somebody that's my teacher that's going to take me where I want to go, this is like one of the most important relationships in my life because we have friends that come and go, partners that come and go, places that we live, places that we work come and go. But like the one thing that remains the same is your path and the way that you're walking it and the learnings and the teachings that go along with that. So like my coaches and teachers for me are one of the top relationships in my life ever. So met him, experienced some ceremonies, and he actually gifted me my very first flute. I had this beautiful image of a flute during an ayahuasca ceremony. And, I had been looking it up on my phone and thinking, okay, I want to get a flute, but I don't know what key. I don't know what maker. I don't know anything yet. I was so just like, I just want to make the sound. So I had been thinking about it, had this ayahuasca ceremony. And in the ceremony, my vision, so there was a flute that was there. I was trying to relax enough, right? And just listen. And I kept telling myself, just listen, just listen. And then all of a sudden, ears, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, everything kind of came together, and all the holes in my face became a flute. They just melded into this one thing, and it became a flute. And then the universe was playing me. I became this instrument. And I think that's such a profound thing to think about because really we all are instruments of the divine and of the universe. And the universe really is playing us. It's playing through me right now. It's like, it's such a beautiful vision. So told my teacher about this and I was leaving and he gifted me my first flute. And on the
That's so
way
sweet.
home, yeah, it changed, that was the moment. And I am not a musical person. My whole life I was in weightlifting, not band. I never picked up an instrument. I was told my whole life that I cannot sing. I did gymnastics and my sister took singing lessons and it was kind of a joke a little bit, but I didn't really care because I was kind of into athletics anyway. And I got this flute home and I started to play it and make my first couple squeaks and started to kind of sound like something. And then from there, it was like this whole world of potential opened up to me. And I was like, oh my God, me, I can be musical. I can make pretty sounds with something. And from there, I took this online training course that my teacher has and started to acquire more instruments and more instruments. I started to sing and open up my voice and just really be brave and live on the edge of everything that I knew that I was capable of. I didn't know I could do any of this. I didn't even know it was in my anything. And so sometimes I think sound chose me because I didn't know I could choose sound. I really think that sound chose me. And in that ayahuasca ceremony I was talking about, I was coming to the medicine and saying, what am I here to do with my life? Because I actually don't know. At the time, I was just teaching yoga. I didn't have ceremony yet. I didn't have sound yet. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? And I heard somewhere along the lines in that weekend, yoga, sound, and ceremony. Yoga, didn't know anything about sound yet. And I had been doing my own mushroom ceremonies, but wasn't like serving it yet and getting into that. And then I left with the flute and I said, okay, I understand sound, but I'm still not a sound person. And now 4 years later, after me kind of going down this route, now I am, full-time yoga teacher, doing ceremonies all the time. And sound has only been the last 2 years or so. But yeah, the sound is now here in such a huge way in my life. I can't imagine my life without it, in fact. And, in that, with my teacher, we went to Peru. And this was another huge inflection point, was my first trip to Peru. It really changed everything for me. It's so much so, I don't even, in ways that I think I don't even know yet. It's still changing and unfolding. I'm so at the beginning of this journey, and yet it feels like I've been doing it forever and it's never not been in my life. But now this medicine, Wachuma, has become the North Star, and working with the Wachuma Foundation is the most exciting thing in my life because it's a way of being of service, really, to the people who want to come on the retreat with us and go to Peru with us, to the people who are curious about this medicine and want to experience the beautiful way of this medicine. And then speaking about the medicine itself, we have different efforts to work through preservation. So we're planting our cactus. We have a cactus sanctuary so that we can continue to give back and make this practice and this medicine sustainable. Because right now it's being over harvested and is almost endangered because of the people taking and taking and taking and not giving. And I don't like, I'm part of the problem too. So I don't even want to say like, everybody out there's the problem. I am too. I'm doing this, but I'm also part of this organization where we're helping to preserve culture and preserve this medicine and provide really beautiful experiences and educational programs and trainings and build awareness around this medicine, because a lot of people talk about ayahuasca. A lot of people talk about mushrooms, but you don't really hear people talking about Wachuma very much. And in my opinion, and my teacher shares this too, I think Wachuma is the medicine, but maybe this is just how it resonates in my body. But it's so light and bright and helpful and heart opening. And yeah, I just think, man, I wish I could show everybody that I know and love this practice, this medicine, these mountains, these prayers. So that's kind of where I'm at today with all of it.
I was going to ask you how you're marching for mental wellness, but I think we just answered it, although I would love to hear you say it in that context. But I think I do want to make one comment. We met on our trip on our way to Peru, but I had the most profound experience just being in the Andes and surrounded by the mountains, let alone without any medicine. And so I think it's really interesting, the effects. So if you combine that and combine that in ceremony and prayer and altars and medicine, it must be profound. So how are you marching for mental wellness?
Twofold for me. The first one is to be of service. And we mentioned yoga, sound, and ceremony. These are the ways that I serve right now. These are my modalities. And it's just being as helpful as I can in those spaces, holding a clear, clean space. So whatever medicine I'm serving, people can work through whatever it is that they need to work through. And that could even mean giving somebody a smile in the grocery store. Because for me, a smile goes so far and it helps people feel so good. So I think my way is to be kind of in the middle of the work with everybody and to be holding spaces and serving them. It's really like about the other. But then there's another side to this coin, and that one is, well, more about me. And I don't want to sound like arrogant or anything when I say this, but There's a quote by Ram Dass that I love so much. And Ram Dass, if you don't know who he is, please look him up. He's the spiritual teacher, and he's just the man. He says, "The only thing I can do for you is work on myself. The only thing you can do for me is work on yourself." And I think that is sort of the crux of all of it is I do a lot of work on myself. All of this is work on me. Even when I'm playing with my instruments, I'm working on myself. I'm going into plant medicine ceremonies so I can work on myself. It's not just about getting high on a mountain. I'm really like deepening into my own topics and my own prayers so that when I show up for people in yoga, sound ceremony, wherever I am, I'm showing up and I'm clear. I'm a clear reflection. I'm a clear mirror. I'm holding a clean space so that they can do their work. And so I don't get in the middle of it because when I'm learning, what I learned just recently is if I'm not totally clear on my topics, and I'll give you an example, like abandonment. I just held space for a mushroom ceremony and this woman's abandonment stuff came up. And it actually triggered my abandonment stuff. Not in the moment, but afterwards for a couple days, I was really working through that. And what that showed me is like, okay, I have a lot more work to do here. But the goal is that when I'm holding a space, to be totally clear and have all of this stuff worked out within me so that it doesn't come up for me. And so I don't get in between the person and the medicine trying to do their work. And so I always think I can't take people somewhere where I haven't been mentally, spiritually. So it's so important for me to keep walking along my path and doing whatever work it is that I need to do so that I can reach back and take people with me. Because if I'm muddy, if I'm not clear, if I'm a mess, then I'm just going to take people into a mess. And that's not what this is about.
I love the clarity part, the being clear, and I love it for multiple reasons. On one hand, as you said, you're doing the work, your whole, so you can be clear, so you can be a mirror. But I think the other thing as well is the ability to be detached in those experiences so that you can be the guide, the ceremonialist who supports the journey of the people who are in ceremony with you. It's like, how do you even know where to go, who to trust to take you on that journey? And in order to do that, you have to build the trust, you have to have been on the path and journey yourself, right?
When you meet somebody, they know like I trust this human for some reason. I just trust them because you can feel the embodiment and you can feel the devotion and the sincerity. But in the spiritual space, and I even, this is kind of with the bodybuilding space too. People do one bodybuilding show and then they think they can train others after doing one show with no education, with no training, and you're messing with people's hormones like for life. And you're messing with their body image and you're messing with their metabolism, these things that can take a while to get back to homeostasis. And I think the same thing happens with the medicine community is people do one or two ayahuasca ceremonies and now all of a sudden they want to be a shaman, but they don't have the relationship built with the plant yet. They don't have the relationship built with themselves yet or have done the work on themselves. They're just sort of in this spiritual sort of ego. And now they think that they can lead people with these medicines. And the thing with the medicine is, like bodybuilding, you're dealing with people's psyches. You're dealing with things that would take years to unwind if you really mess them up. So you know, it's kind of a touchy subject because it's everywhere. Everybody wants to serve medicine now. And sometimes I even hold back a little bit saying that I want to serve medicine because I don't want to be another one of those people. But I also know I have amazing teachers. I do the work to develop a relationship with the medicine and I do the work on myself. And so I check myself all the time to make sure this is not coming from a spiritual ego place. Like I don't need to be in a position of power. I don't ever need to even advertise that I do this. This could be something that happens in the quietness of my own home or in my own retreats or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on in the plant medicine space, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's really scary. This has been a very interesting conversation today. I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm curious, Dani, I love this question. This is your platform today to give a message to
Mhm.
women of all ages, of all backgrounds, of all cultures. What do you want to leave them with?
Yeah, this is a great question because it could really go there's so many things I could say, What I
There's
do
no
want to
time limit. There's no time limit.
there's no time limit. Okay, so I could just keep rambling and ramble. We'll see where it goes today. the message I that feels the most potent for me anyway right now, that's at the forefront of my brain and my heart, is a message I received a couple weeks ago in Peru from the medicine, which is really, I guess, just me talking to me. The medicine is just the channel. And it's something that the mountains always continue to teach me every time I'm there. But this time in Peru, I really heard it in such a big way. And the message was to keep walking, to keep walking. These two words, the layers are so deep because it's like whatever journey you're on, whether that is your path of devotion, learning how to be of service, keep walking, whether you're building a business, building a family, going through mental health struggles, going through a divorce, new into a relationship, keep walking because it's gonna you'll get the clarity. You'll get the answers that you're looking for. You'll get the next step. The universe will meet you where you are with the other step. So if you keep walking, I think that everything gets revealed, whatever it is that you're looking for. Yeah, I just think that this is absolutely so helpful. And it also speaks to this too shall pass. Because if you're going through a tough time right now, this too shall pass if you keep walking. If you keep walking, if you don't keep walking, if you stay right there and you wallow in it and you're stuck, then it's going to take a lot longer to get better. And even if you're going through good times, this too shall pass. Keep walking. Because life is full of ups and downs. Life is just lifing. It's really a thing of like, how are we responding to it? And are we stopping? Are we letting life bury us under the current of whatever's going on? And so keep walking because things are going to get better. And things are probably going to get worse at some point too. It's the law of the universe. And I think if we keep walking, only will we know the other side of wherever it is that we are. And I think just speaking to the contrast of the universe and that this too shall pass, there's something I trust in. And, like I said, there's been many inflection points for me and I feel like I've lived 9 lives just in this life, It's like there's a law of polarity. And it says that with every good time, there's a bad time. For everything that happens, there's an equal and opposite reaction in the universe. So if we're going through a bad time, a hard time right now, there's something of equal bliss on the other side of this hard time. And it's of equal or more proportion. It has to be because everything in the universe is in balance. And so like I say that to know that if anybody out there is going through a tough time, that there's a good time right around the corner and you're only going to get there if you keep walking. And I think about imposter syndrome. If you're new on a path, because the reason why I got this message from the medicine was I was sitting there in front of this lake on top of my favorite mountain, and I had the message, do this. You have to do this. You have to serve this medicine, find your spots, get home and do this. And I said, okay, I'm willing. What do I do? And all I heard was keep walking. Because
It's
it
so
wasn't,
simple
yeah,
and it's so profound. As you said, there's so many layers to it, but it's also profound. It's really deep. There's the movement side of it, but if you intellectualize it or go into the spiritual space, it's really deep.
it's so beautiful. And I think about people being new on a journey and imposter syndrome or whatever. And I think if you keep walking down your path of devotion, eventually that will lead to a way of service because eventually you want to share it and people want to come with you. So the more if you keep walking one foot in front of the other, and sometimes that's all it has to be is one foot. It doesn't have to be a whole marathon. You don't have to get super far. It's the point, what matters is that you just take the next step and then take the next step. And one of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember who said it, but it says, baby steps will take you all the way to the top of Mount Everest if you just keep taking them.
Love
Yeah.
that. Love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also just like one more little aside I want to say just about this whole thing. See, I was like, this is a big one I could ramble on. Following the heart. Ram Dass says, if you follow your heart, there's nothing to fear. And I really believe that, but sometimes it is really scary to follow our heart because sometimes it's a taboo way of living life. And it's something that your parents or your people or your partners really don't understand. But I think if you just keep following your heart, eventually it'll make sense why your heart is leading you in this direction. But if you stop and give up and come back into a little shell in a little box, then you're never going to understand where your heart was actually leading you. And kind of on the same topic is this topic of following your curiosity, which I think is also synonymous with following your heart. I think our curiosity leads us to amazing places. Sometimes when people say, "What's your passion in life? What's your purpose?" Those can be really big topics, and even that word can be discouraging because it's like, well, I don't know what the purpose of life is. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my passion is. I know I like painting or I like nature, but I don't know what's there. Like passion and purpose, I think can feel very defeating for some. But I think curiosity is a lot more friendly. And if you keep following your curiosity, it'll lead you to something else that piques your curiosity. And then if you keep going, keep walking, keep devoting yourself to that, then it will lead you to maybe a hobby. And if you keep diving in, keep walking with that hobby, it'll lead you to a passion. And then keep walking with the passion. And the passion eventually leads to a service, a way that you can share this with others and teach others and bring others. And that is service. That is purpose. So for me, passion plus service equals purpose. And you only get there if you keep walking.
I love that. I think that is the perfect way to end. And I love the windy road that got us there. And I'm keeping walking. I promise you, I'm keeping walking. Dani,
Mhm.
this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for getting under the hood with me and for sharing your story.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for your questions and for having me. And thank you for being you. And thank you for doing what you do for all the sisters out there.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Matt Butler, and edited by Matt Butler. The music is by Ayla Schaefer. Her song, Rose.